What's going on, y'all? Welcome to the Manifesting Futures channel. I just want to do a quick trade breakdown on one of the trades that I took this rising. I just started a Topstep 50k account challenge today. Today was day one, and for those that don't know, Topstep is a prop firm that allows you to have buying power and make money in the markets without actually putting that money up front. Save a little bit of cash. As long as you know how to trade and you know what you're doing, this could be a great tool to use. Without further ado, let me get into it, man. I primarily trade NQs. That's the only thing I really look at. And I primarily trade range-based charts. I don't do time-based charts. I used to be a time-based chart trader when I first started. Mind you, I've only been trading for about a year and a half or so, almost 2 years now. I just pretty much found out what worked for me. You know, with all the back testing and practicing that I've done, I figured that supply and demand is the basic, most understandable and simple strategy that worked for me on a range-based chart. If you don't really understand how to use range-based charts, I highly recommend y'all go look at it. I'm not really gonna dive too deep into how to use this chart. I'm just gonna break down, you know, what I was seeing, where my mind was at, and then I'll show you guys a clip of the actual live trade. Looking at the 120 range chart here, this is basically what would be considered as a higher based time frame. I use the 120 range to kind of figure out where the market's heading. I use it to determine market structure, and just upon looking at the past couple days within the past week, I see that we are, you know, overall bullish, but kind of choppy in a way. I was looking at pre-market conditions, and I had initially listed out my pre-market low and pre-market high. This line right here is the pre-market high, and this would be the pre-market low right here. So I had an eye on these two levels here just to see where the market would have gone. And overall, my bias this rising, when I looked at the chart, it was a little confusing. It's Monday, and sometimes Monday can be super slow, not really have any direction. So far, just looking at the past couple days, like I said, we were pretty bullish, and then we started doing a little range here. Kind of looked like a little bull flag, right? What I had seen was that, all right, I'm gonna mark these highs and lows, and once we kind of get out of this high and low range that I was seeing, that was basically going to determine my bias on what exactly the market was going to do. You could have made money in either scenarios today. It was just a little tough because it was super slow. Price action was slow. It was very choppy. Just looking at the 120 range, I didn't really have a clear bias on what was going on, but I kind of marked out my zones as the market kept moving, right? So market opened up. It was getting a little bearish at one point, and then it hit this demand zone from a pre-market low, which wasn't necessarily a high probability demand zone in this area right here, just because it was already tested. So I wasn't really looking to get in on a trade then and there, because it was still a little confusing on where the market was truly going to go. But I did keep into account that we did break above this previous high right here. I was considering that it was going to eventually stay bullish, just because overall we were bullish, right? As the market went up, it created this demand zone right here. So you see this green box that I have listed right here, where we have the high of this bearish candle and the low of this bullish candle. That's my zone, right off the 120 range. As it got up here, I'm like, okay, this is good, because this zone hasn't been tested even on the initial breakout. Not only that, but this zone broke above this high and was basically, yeah, it even broke above this high as well, taking us out of this little range that we have. But it was a soft break, so you still have to be careful with that. It wasn't a full on closed break above this high, so I was still being careful with it, right? But from what I had seen, I was like, yo, this is a little too good, right? Because if you see here, there's multiple confluences, right? This is the pre-market high where price was attracted to. As you can see multiple times, even on the left hand side, we've been bouncing off of this area right here multiple times, right? So as we created this new demand zone, breaking above as well from previous highs, we eventually came back down. And when you look on the 60 range, as you can see, this zone right here, on the top of this bearish candle and the low of this bullish candle, this move right here is basically this move right here on the 120. This just shows you a little more information, scaling down a little bit. As I found this block right here, I also noticed that we're moving up pretty drastically and we're breaking above previous highs, you know, on the left hand side, right? And I'm noticing that we're leaving a little gap here, right? And if you know what the market does, it tends to fill every single gap that it's got. Doesn't matter how long it takes, it will eventually fill in gaps. So that's something that I'm taking into consideration. We left a little gap right here between this candle, and then if I scale down even more to where I actually take my trades, the 12 range, where I take my scalps, you can see this right here, this little yellow box. That's another mini demand zone on the 12 range chart, right? And I'm like, okay, we got basically 4 confluences right now. We have pre-market high, where prices, an area where prices basically attracted to bounce off of and move towards. We have the 120 range, the 60 range, and 12 range demand zones where price could bounce off of at any point of these times. And I waited patiently. I saw this move, what around, I don't even know what time it was. It was around 10 o'clock. But I waited. I didn't take any of these trades up here. You see all of these trades that you could have potentially could have gotten in on. Yeah, you could have gotten in on some of these things, but it was a little too risky just because the market just kept pumping up and up and up, and there was really no way to determine when the market was going to come back down, right? I didn't want to get caught up, you know, where I'm like, all right, let me buy in here, and then market all of a sudden just dips down below, then comes back up. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't want that to happen because there was really no clear indication on where I could get in, right? You know, I waited patiently. I waited for it to make all these other moves up here. These boxes up here, the purple box is supply zone that I've listed. As you can see, this one that I had right here, this one was key for me that I saw being set up right. So the market came down. It was chopping down because, as you can see, look at these candles and the wicks that it was leaving. It wasn't like dumping, right? It was basically fighting. The sellers were fighting to bring this down. And what I had in my head was basically, all right, market is moving up and hasn't moved back down to retrace itself. Sellers are going to eventually try to turn this around. And what I was thinking was, right, the market's still bullish, so the sellers are going to get trapped eventually from the buyers, because the buyers are going to make the sellers think that, okay, it's okay to sell all your shit and make this money, right? Lo and behold, market is still bullish. People are still in demand of buying, right? So eventually the buyers were going to step in to trap the sellers, to use and take out these sellers and use it as fuel to get the market to move down to this specific demand zone that I had kept an eye on, to move this back up, right? To fuel it back up and take out all of these sellers, right? That's where my head was at. I don't know if I'm really explaining that right. I don't know if y'all understand me, but that's kind of where my head was at. I may not be the most technical or the most like informative trader using all these big words and this and that and a third. I like to keep it simple. You know what I'm saying? I caught on to this specific strategy really quick, and it has been working out very well for me. The main thing that I had needed to work on throughout the years was basically the psychological part and being patient, things like that. As you can see on the 60 range, we end up bouncing off somewhere over here. We came up, right? I marked this one. It was low probability because it was tested so many times, but I knew that price would eventually come up and bounce somewhere within this range, right? Which it did. We reversed out of this area. We came back down, right? What happened was this came all the way down here. And as soon as I seen these 3 bars, I was like, all right, 60 range is creating another supply area. This supply area is a pretty good supply area, by the way, because it wasn't tested necessarily. It moved all the way down, broke structure all the way down. But I knew that from where we were at, this was going to eventually come down to this area that I was specifically talking about. And look what it did, right? Look what it did. It came down. It tapped in to where I had that 12 range demand zone. You know what I'm saying? And boom, it bounced off. And let me show you guys on my 12 range where I had gotten in this area. I got in this area right here, right? I'm gonna go ahead and play the clip of basically where I had taken a trade. I got in pretty aggressive. We tapped in and I saw the candle break above previous candle. So as you can see, we had the bullish candle, the first bullish candle rejected, and then the second bullish candle broke above the previous bearish candle. And I was being patient. I didn't want to stay in this trade too long just because how the market was today. You know, like I said, the price action was very slow. It was choppy in a way, and price was basically doing some weird stuff today, which is very hard to read, at least for me. And I didn't want to stay in a long trade for it to come around on me, because that actually happened to me on my first 3 trades when I had took some trades on MNQs. I took my first trade on MNQs. I could have been done for the day, but I waited too long because I was expecting more than that, and I should have just took profits. I basically could have made $200 from 5 contracts, and I didn't pull out soon enough. That happened to me a couple times today, so I didn't want that to happen again, so I kept it short and simple. And as you can see, price is basically doing its thing, and we are eventually going to break above that previous high. I had faith in this one. I didn't want to, close it too soon, even though I was feeling tempted to, because like I said, price was really weird today. But I decided to thug it out, right? Decided to trust the process, because this was a really good demand zone, right? And I trusted in my strategy and what I was looking for. And as you can see, we're getting and moving closer. and I'm trying to trail it, but boom, it hits my take profit. Let's head back to the charts after hours, and you can see where I got in and I got out. That was a good, what, 818, 830. So that's about what, 12 points or so. 12 points, 25 points, right? And I could have held it, right? But I didn't want to do that. And as you can see, it only moved so much higher than where it was from. I could have, yes, but just the time span and what I was looking for, I didn't want to wait too long because I was waiting all day. But as you can see, it used this zone to bounce off numerous times. And if I had held all the way through all that, boom, that would have been nice right there. But I just didn't really have the time to do all that. And I think holding this trade through all of this, especially after, having 3 trades earlier where I held it too long and lost my profits, majority of my profits. I didn't want that to happen again. So I just got in and got out. But, if you're a swing trader or somebody who likes to hold their trades and persevere through the storm, this would have been perfect. Would have been perfect for you. This would have been perfect for me. I barely would have had any drawdown, even if I held it out all the way. As you can see, my entry's right here and barely any drawdown. And, boom, the rest is history. Could have easily made a bunch of money today, but it's all good. There's always tomorrow. And that's pretty much it. That's the trade breakdown I wanted to, do for the day. I do appreciate any of y'all who stopped by the channel and gave this video a watch. I really want to be more consistent with, this content and creating more videos for y'all. My plan is to basically do a trade breakdown every day of one trade that I'm happy about. Expect more content, a ton of content to come soon. And I'll catch y'all in the next video. Peace.